Hello, everyone. A warm namaste and a heartfelt welcome to all of you. I, Anuradha Sharda, would like to thank all of you for watching our videos, liking them, writing in your comments and your suggestions. Today, we have with us as a guest Charlotte Benson. Charlotte, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
Charlotte's list of achievements is nearly endless, and it would take me a good 30 minutes to talk about it. I can just say she's been the president of Arizona Astrological Society, one of the oldest in the West, for 5 consecutive terms. She's currently AVCA president. She's done a lot of work. She's been working on and with astrology since before I was born, and as I said, the list is endless, but I do can say one thing, that she's very humble and very, very nice to communicate with. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for accepting the invitation.
It's my honor to be here with you, dear.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So Charlotte, where do we begin with? What's our topic for today?
Well, I thought that perhaps your listeners might want to hear my spin or my take on where the planets are right now. These are strange times, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. Never before kind of times.
Yes, yes. I think that's. I mean, thank goodness this hasn't happened before. At least not for a long time. And you know, I sort of as I observe my clients going through what they're dealing with recently, I have to say that I believe there's 2 parallel universes going on here in terms of experience. And of course, as you probably tell, I'm here in the West, and most of my clients are Westerners, either in America or South Africa or Australia. But in any case, I think there's probably a global experience of this. But what I've seen is that actually, even though with this COVID-19 pandemic situation, there is so much fear and pain and suffering and lack and loss, but also I have at least the same amount of people that are reporting to me that this is the best time that they've had in decades in their own personal life. Of course, these are the people that aren't sick or haven't lost someone. But I think it's very interesting to observe this phenomenon. I don't think I've ever seen this before, where it was so, you know, to paraphrase Charles Dickens, it's from A Tale of Two Cities, it's the best of times and it's the worst of times. And I think that this can be attributed to Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter and Ketu not far behind. That little cluster there at the beginning of Capricorn, contrasted with a lot of planets being in their dignity in other parts of the sky. So I think that might be worth, that idea might be worth developing a bit. If you think
let's go ahead with that. Yes, let's go ahead with that.
So, you know, as you might know from our previous conversation, I'm a big advocate of the use of the outer planets. Now, I realize that this is slightly controversial, or it used to be controversial. Maybe it's not anymore. But by the outer planets, I mean Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. So
right.
as it happens, just to make this point, Pluto entered the sign of the constellation of Capricorn on February 24th, 2020, by certain measurements, depending on, you know, the Ayanamsha that you use and all that. But let's just say it was right around the 3rd week in February 2020, which by a strange coincidence was the very first day of a series of US stock market crashes. And of course that had a negative ripple effect across the globe. But that was really distinctive. Now, I actually was surprised to see that. I mean, I wasn't surprised at the strength of the planet Pluto to produce that kind of an effect, but on the very day that it changes signs, I mean, I was impressed. That got my attention. For your information, I was using the Lahiri Ayanamsha just because that's my default setting. but in any case, so here's Pluto changing signs, which is, well, okay, so that's fine. Pluto changes signs anywhere between every 13 years and every 30 years. You know, Pluto has a very anomalous orbit. It spends 13 years in the winter signs, as you if you will, and 30 years in
The
the
summer signs.
springtime signs. Yeah, it
Hmm.
does. So, but but so okay, and if I were understanding, or at least my current understanding of what what the planet what, what the sign Capricorn could mean is, you know, this is the sign of big business and big institutions, and to use an American expression, institutions that are too big to fail, like insurance companies, banks, uh, hospitals, governments. So at least in the United States, it, all hell is breaking loose over here. So because just to add another layer of strangeness to this conversation, uh, the United States is having its first Pluto return. So, you know, Pluto has a 248-year cycle. So
Yeah.
I'm just characterizing this as being a near-death experience, at least in the United States. And I'm sorry to say that I think that whatever United States destiny is going to interfere with other unsuspecting companies as well. But that's just a little bit about Pluto, uh, you know, just entering the constellation of Capricorn. And then I also thought it was quite, well, not funny, but an interesting coincidence that uh, Pluto entered Uttara, and we know that that's associated with loneliness or austerity, or so, you know, people are at least here in the States, people are supposed to be on lockdown. There's a lot of people that are not in quarantine, as you also may have read somewhere. But you know, it's interesting. I think I'm telling my clients, I'm saying, now this is the time. This is, you know, that, oh, there's a phrase that solitude is the price of greatness. So in order to, you know, regroup and reset things, we need to just be within our own space and mind our own business and see what emerges from that.
Right. So, right. So, what you're trying to say is Pluto for America, along with many other countries America has very strong ties with, is going to give a new direction to America as such. Or
Yeah, yes. Well, yes, and when you know that Pluto, I I work with clients every day, and so I'm just trained to do as well as I can to explain complex conditions in the most simple to understand form. So along those lines, Pluto is the planet of birth and death and rebirth, birth and death and rebirth. Very simple concept. Pluto's the planet of a million other things too, but so I characterize this as America's having a near-death experience here. I almost hesitate to say this in a public forum, but you know, it seems to me like this is the death of democracy here in America. Um, I'm I'm neither for that nor against that, but you know, something is this is really pretty intense. So
so can we also interpret it like that? When you say that it is a case of death, birth, death, and rebirth. So there can be a change in the way of perception and a new form of democracy, or the new way of how people would start looking up to governments would come up.
yes, that would be, yes, that's a fair statement. But it's, you know, it's easy enough to say birth and death and rebirth, but
But there's a
that's
pain associated, definitely. The
yeah,
pain associated with the death before the rebirth has to be felt before you know there is a rebirth.
yes, that's true, and the form will not be any, the rebirth will not be anything vaguely resembling the previous form, and I believe that it will take quite some time, maybe another 10, 12, 15 years. So I'm not, and again, I'm not being negative. I'm listening to myself and saying, well, it's not like you to talk like this, but you know, we're talking about mundane archetypes here. And but the other feature of Pluto in this position, as you know, you and I had talked offline about Pluto being conjunct Saturn and Jupiter as well. So it just I believe that the last time Saturn and Pluto were conjunct was, oh gosh, I don't know, somewhere in the early 1980s. Maybe
Right.
it was a while ago. I should know that, but and it, you know, that was not an easy time. I think, you know, just as a metric, interest rates, at least here in America, were in double digits, and I mean, of course, there was a lot of other political turmoil going on. I'm not a mundane astrologer, but I wanted to compare and contrast that Pluto and Saturn conjunct every 32, 35 years, something along those lines. It's rare enough to be impactful. However, in this particular position, I think since the reference is in the constellation of Capricorn, I think that it points to the major structures that hold society together, or supposedly hold societies together, like major corporations, and as I mentioned earlier, things like major corporations, governments, and, you know, boring things like
Right.
insurance companies. So that's where the erosion comes to play. I mean, it's a serious reset. Now, when Jupiter also jumps in there, when Jupiter's in his debilitated state, I'm still interested to see if that happens to be an improvement, or if it's, you know, a breakdown in the in the rule of law. I mean, at least in America, I don't mean to be so myopic and keep talking about the United States, but you know, this is what I'm exposed to in the news every day. You know, there's a breakdown in the rule of law. As a, you know,
Yes. That was
that's
worldwide. That was worldwide. That was one off, very bad, and it was worldwide phenomenon that we had come to hear about. You know, there was an uproar. Yes.
oh yes, it's it's well, it's a serious problem. However, at the same time, you know, when I'm dealing with my clients, we're not talking about this. They're already having a hard enough time, and they're depending on me to say, where's the bright spots here? So this is why I wanted to introduce the concept of the parallel universe of certain planets being in their dignities. So I think that I'll share with you what my premise is. It's sort of my developing concept of this. And this may not be an original idea, but I'm saying that, okay, on the big, heavy, ponderous, the big bully planets are connected, and there's no doubt about it. This is going on, and we need to cope with you know, the larger context of this. However, I think that what an individual can do in spite of this is choose to think the best thoughts that they possibly can. So now that might seem like a very quaint idea, or a typically American idea, or pixie dust, or something very, very positive, but why not? Why not think the very best thoughts that we can? You know, in terms of influencing the quantum universe, you know, the quantum universe, or at least on an individual level. My thinking that I'm developing is that individuals have much more influence on the outcome than we might think that we have. You know, it's bad news all the time. It's bad news 24/7. However, I think that, so for instance, as on a practical level, Venus is in dignity in Taurus now, and we can choose to reevaluate what's important to us. You know, Venus is the planet of value. I mean, everybody knows that what Venus is the karaka of all these wonderful things. But I think a sophisticated way to look at Venus too is that Venus, you can choose where you're putting your attention on where you're creating value. All right, so Venus is in Taurus, in a sign of nature. We can, I don't know, maybe Venus has spent so much time in Taurus that my experience, at least through my clients, is that they've been really enjoying nature and just doing, simple things, cooking and baking and looking at sunsets and things they wouldn't normally do, in just a very simple way. So Venus is in Taurus for the next couple of days. People that I see are reevaluating. They're reevaluating, where to put their time and attention. And then, on another level, you know that, as you well know, right now, currently, Mercury is in Gemini, and so, my goodness, everybody's getting an education on, Zoom classes and YouTube.
With Rahu, right? So it's all the internet explosion.
Yes, I've never seen anything like this. It's quite wonderful. Of course, there's a lot of rubbish out there that you could get involved in, but I myself too have been having a good old time on, listening to Sanskrit mantras from YouTube, and I don't know. I spent 2.5 hours the other day looking at megalithic structures in the south of England for whatever reason, boning up on medieval English literature for whatever. But there's so much value to be created also, because people are, it is to be hoped that they're becoming more informed in a certain way, or making intellectual connections. So that's
a very beautiful one that you just said, Charlotte, and it's on a very positive note. And when you said to have a positive thought or to be more creative, that is not being American. Honestly, I'll take it as back as the Gita, where Sri Krishna tells Arjuna in the chapter 11 that the war is already over. The princes are dead, and he's killed them. All he has to do is think about it. So it's actually where we are, our positive thoughts and our ability to work towards those positive thoughts have been creating our future. And I see nothing wrong in you saying that, and that it's when we reset our modes, because the planets, they can, as you very rightly put up, the bullies may be together, but the young ones can also do a lot of good help and help you build it up. It's a very beautiful take on that.
Well, you're very generous, dear. Thank you. So, and then thank you. Yes, that's of course. I mean, that, again, it's not an original idea, but where we put our attention expands. So, even though in the background there may be rioting in the streets, on an individual level, keeping our composure and managing thoughts, managing to consciously ask ourselves every day, is that the best thought? Is that the best thought? This is what I said. Is that the very best thought you can think today, Charlotte? If not, let's think let's think something a little bit better along those lines. And then, of course, Jupiter right now is retrograded back into Sagittarius. And I'm thinking that also that people could intentionally use this to reconsider their mission statement, or their vision statement, or their life, or maybe not their life philosophy, but to refine that, or to go back to remember what we really believe. Again, I'm a simple-minded person, and I like to keep these in, thoughts that I could manage for myself. But this retrograde Jupiter in Sagittarius, in a certain way, because I'm an American, I could say, well, this is time for you to put your money where your mouth is. I mean, this is not theory, put this into practice. Be conscious of how how you're driven with your purpose. And then after Jupiter resumes direct motion in mid-September, then we can, we can see how that helps guide people in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that makes some kind of sense. The idea with Jupiter being retrograde right now, I think that this is an appropriate time to really reconsider what you think you believe. There's there's a bumper sticker on cars here in America. It says, "Don't believe everything you think." But I find amusing. I find a lot of things amusing. But again, this is sort of this could be an interior exercise in the next 6 weeks or so. So then, and
there's a beautiful concept when you're saying that you need to reconsider, but Jupiter will give you a chance. And if you said that your clients are finding mundane things that they didn't have time for and enjoying that and enjoying the peace, so Jupiter probably is giving us a good time to look back into things that we have missed out in a quest. The inner peace that we were so lacking, it's giving us enough time to look into that inner peace. And you've rightly said that Venus and Mercury are also helping us, aiding us to find that out. So we can take these things into consideration before we are getting so bogged down by the pandemic, the Pluto and Saturn as bullies.
Yes, well, and then one can choose where they put their attention, theoretically, in any case. So I mean, this is the type of information that I work with my clients in crisis, and so
here I'd like to ask you something, Charlotte, about your practice. So there is a theory that everything is fated and set in stone. From gathering from our conversation, I do not see you believing in that, but I'd like you to shed some light on it.
So I would say that yes, I don't believe that it's all fate, that it's fated. And I realize that I'm probably wandering into deep territory that I'm not necessarily qualified to comment on, but I'm going to comment anyway, because this is what I've observed, at least from my limited perspective here. I mean, granted, I live in a pretty privileged position, but I'm thinking that the simple way that I've thought about this is that, again, I haven't heard anybody else say this, and someone may take exception to it, but I think that any of the visible planets, any planet that you can see with your naked eye, if you knew where to look, I think that those planets can be managed. Now, I say that with all due respect to the planets, because of course this also includes Lord Shani, Saturn. So I think that the planets which interfere with your life in a certain way, if they can be seen, I think through experience and good decisions and spiritual practices, or they can be managed. However, the outer planets and the invisible planets, Rahu-Ketu and Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Now there's that, when they are active, now that's the intrusion of fate, I think. So yeah, that there's I think that there's a mixture of obviously fate and free will. I like to think it's about 30% fate and the rest free will.
Okay. So do you always guide your followers, your clients, to also include into their habits, to inculcate certain habits that will help them to overcome a time when you see things may not be going so very smoothly or beautifully?
Oh yes, and I'll be honest with you, don't tell my clients this necessarily, but everybody gets almost the same advice. Meditate, do pranayama, do selfless service, pray for divine intervention, do your spiritual practice, do it consistently, and keep a positive attitude. And I mean, I know, no, maybe not so much the last part about keep a positive attitude, but what my clients, I think what they really benefit from, excuse me, is knowing when this cycle will be over. That's a I don't know if that's something that you were asking me about.
No, but yeah,
But
that is inclusive, because I totally agree. When the psyche is that we know we are coming to the end of something which may not be that smooth. So then you know that the end is just near, and then it's just a smooth walk after that. So it does help rebuild your confidence and does give you that staying power in that bad situation also. I totally agree with what you said.
yeah, so in a difficult situation, I would say something like, don't judge yourself by your results right now. You have to pace yourself. You might be having 40 miles of rough road. That's an American expression. So if you're at mile 5, don't keep your patience about this. And my I famously say, don't make it any worse than it already is. And that there's certain things you can do in the meantime, but again, it just takes as long as it takes in certain cases. And again, I say certain things like, these things run in cycles. You're not doing anything wrong. And this is what my clients find useful, I think, is even though you might have been in a difficult cycle for quite a long time, this is not your new normal. You're not on the downward slide. This is not the new normal. You will be able to, pick up where you left off. And it is to be hoped. My assumption is that everything is in an upward spiral of evolution. So even in those difficult times, there's a purpose. There's a purpose to this.
So it's been a very
I
beautiful,
don't know, even simple.
No, it's not simple. It may sound simple, but there's a profound knowledge, and there's a profound experience that you have had with so many years of lifting people's spirit when they are down and under. And that's a beautiful thing, Charlotte. Charlotte, as you said that you always tell your clients that, this is the end of the cycle. But for us, you did say that it's going to take some time for the cycle to end, maybe 10 to 12 years, 13 years. So how would you want people in this case to adjust to this, as you've stated that, but then you do see that there is going to be an end to this entire phase, and then a new one is going to come up. Do you see that?
Well, yes, and it'll be different for different countries, obviously, but as a global phenomenon, I think that Pluto in this, again, of course, there's a lot of contributing factors, isn't there?
Right. So
position says to break down large structures. It's
right.
there's a lot of problems out there.
Right. So we're looking forward to, we can see a lot of structures breaking up, and there can be a lot of pain, there can be a lot of confusion, mayhem. But at the end of the day, there is going to be resurrection, and that resurrection will be a new normal, which will be for some time to come, right?
Yes, exactly. It's going to take some time. And, just to insert a completely random idea here, this is something that I think is, speaking of random, the comet Neowise has shown up. And I think this is a wild card. So we've got all this other stuff going on. We got Pluto and Saturn and all this stuff over here in Capricorn. And then, there's already been two comets that have entered our solar system that fizzled out previously in 2020. And I don't hear anybody else talking about this, but I think those are those two comets that fizzled out, or they self-destructed before they got any closer. I think that that's what I think
Omen.
that contributed to the contagion on this planet.
Okay.
And now now we have Comet Neowise, which was I can't remember when it was discovered, but it was very prominent at the end of March, and I think that that's when really all heck broke loose, and so I think that these doom Ketus, the comets, the smoky-tailed comets, I think this is certainly going to have an impact on world leaders as well. I mean, that's just one other random factor. What else could go wrong here? I mean, there's been fires, floods, plagues of locusts, and now there's comets. So we better, I think then, as a practical matter, I'm suggesting to my clients to maintain as much neutrality as they can, too. I've sort of intruded that idea in my larger idea, but in chapter 11 of the Brihat Samhita, that's where they talk about different colored Ketus or comets, and it just occurred to me, the English word comet is probably associated with Ketu, isn't it? Sometimes I actually listen to myself when I'm talking, but so some comets could have a positive effect. They're different colors, different tails, which direction they're going, where they came from. When I was reading that, and it struck me, how could the ancient rishis actually see all these colors and these tails of these comets? Where did they get that? I can't even tell that from looking at photographs of Comet Neowise. But in any case, I think that because of the proximity of that comet, that may also help to clear out ineffectual leadership, I'm delicately saying, wherever that occurs. Wherever that needs to be done.
Yes, it's a beautiful one, and I seriously, as a person who deals, who works or loves the nakshatra, I would simply say that September is actually a time that, mid-August to mid-September is a time we need to be very careful about, because as you said, the Ketu, the comet, is moving to Jeshta. Once Ketu is in Jeshta, after a degree, definitely, I pray and hope the same, that ineffectual leadership will be taken to task, because Ketu is moving in one of the very strong signs once again.
Well, yes, and of course, I was using the word Ketu interchangeably with comets,
right?
And saying that's a whole other, as I say, wild card or maverick or outlier or random influence. But yes, I think that, of course, most astrologers have pointed to the fact that, excuse me, that this COVID-19 virus situation should improve measurably when Rahu moves out of the air sign of Gemini.
Yeah.
We're going to hold on to that idea, but this is like I do when I'm dealing with my clients. They're smarter than I am sometimes. I'm going, yeah, this will be a relief, getting Rahu out of Gemini. And then they say, well, then what? What next? Oh, yes. Well, then we have to think about Rahu-Ketu being in the financial signs, don't we? Now, where are we going with that? Yes, Rahu and Ketu are in dignity by most standards in Taurus and Scorpio, but what does this say about looting of money? And I'm telling everybody I know, if you have any cash, keep it. you know, well, I don't know how to further develop that idea, but again, just in I imagine that somehow there'll be, you know, more resetting of material values, I suppose, or people will understand more about, you know, what is purposely hidden, what is purposely hidden. Now, of course, you know, every astrologer, every Jyotishi is talking about hidden secrets and exposure, and I don't mean to sound that this is another generic statement, but I mean, how else would you, in modern terms, how else would you be able to identify what Ketu in Scorpio means? I think that, so my job as a contemporary Westerner is, I do my very best to take ancient principles and make them understandable to my clients. My clients are, you know, they're well educated and sophisticated, but they don't really want to hear about, you know, the ancient, I don't know, the ancient tales. They want to know, what does this mean in practical terms? And please make this only 3 sentences. But so we would say, where is Ketu in Scorpio? If Scorpio has to do with I don't know, but intentionally withheld power, or or secrets. I think that what will be suggesting to people is that, well, again, there's a financial component. Everybody knows about that, just simply because it's Taurus and Scorpio. But more on a sort of a psycho-spiritual level, we would say, how can people acknowledge their own power? Whether they have any affluence, they would at least have some influence in some way. I think those are Scorpio concepts, along with the other, everything that we also already know. But Scorpio is about influence and affluence, isn't it?
Beautiful. Beautifully put. So very beautifully put. So if you have the affluence, make sure that you're able to influence the society in a better manner and uprising. That's a very beautiful statement that you've put across.
That would be a positive manifestation. And I think too that people are beginning to discover that they have more control over their circumstances than they have previously acknowledged. You know, it's so easy to blame blame a lot of things, you know, government or the weather or whatever it is, or this pandemic. And you know, I think I think as a species we're becoming a little bit more self-aware. It is to be hoped that we're becoming more self-aware and accountable for choices.
Yes.
Accountability is, and I do stress this with my clients. You know, they come to me and they say, what's going to happen to me? And I say, excuse me, do you mean what is going to happen with your participation? I mean, clients that know me, you know, they don't ask that anymore. But I think that there's a sophisticated way of looking at the opportunities presented by any particular combination. I know I veered off on the topic there, but that does relate to the individual influence or power that a person has that will be developed in the next 18 months, where Ketu is in Scorpio. There'll be real, not dominating power, but real internal strength. The contrast between domination and interior strength. I think that's the theme.
Thank you so very much, Charlotte. It was very, very succulently and very, very prosaically put forward that what Ketu would give us in, or has the capability to give us when it's in Scorpio. And as you say, we can enhance it with our participation. We'll meet you again, Charlotte, some other time.
I hope so. All right, dear. Thank you so much. Best to you, dear. Okay. Bye-bye.